Welcome, everyone. I'm so grateful to have Nir Nitai with us again today. Nir, welcome.
Hey Sandra, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too, and welcome everyone in the audience. So, for today, as usual, we're going unscripted, but we're going to try to continue on where we dropped last time, around what is love and how might we go about approaching real love. And so to begin to open up this topic, which is huge and which maybe we could talk about for several episodes or more, I will start with two experiences that are close to me right now or have been. And from there, I'm hoping that that gives some ground to dive into what is love and what is love not. All right. So the first experience, and this is actually an experience I've had several times, but I'll talk about it as like one time. Okay, so I've been out in the forest where my mind relaxes the most. And usually the mind is in some kind of debate, and whenever that debate suddenly silences, there is this space to experience gratitude, to experience joy. And I was in that space where I was just letting the mind quiet, and I was beginning to see gratitude all around me, looking at the trees, looking at nature around me. It was just so beautiful. And this is a very beautiful state to be in because we become receptive to love. And so what happened in that moment was that I feel that this was grace, like this was a gift to me. I was graced with this incredible feeling of infinite love in my entire body, in my entire being. There was nothing that I could perceive that wasn't love. And this was so intense for me that I cried for an hour, maybe 2 hours, because I had never experienced a love like this before.
Wow. How long
And
how long ago was it, Sandra?
um, well, I have to go back in my diary and read about it, but I think approximately two years ago, the first time. And it was such a deep, profound experience that I realized that all of the things that I had called love before were expressions, like human filtered expressions of love, but there is something much, much deeper, something much more expansive that I cannot even begin to wrap my words around. And so I realized that something in me is actually keeping me from that love, because I could feel that this is the natural state. Um, and so I think that's when my journey to begin to remove all the obstacles in the way of feeling that love intensified quite a lot. And so I really cherish those experiences because they helped me get in contact with that. However, it's also a desolation that happens when you lose that, because you go back into ordinary life and nothing is as vivid anymore. Even if you experience love on a human level, you can now recognize this is not quite it. It's beautiful. We should cherish it. We should nourish it. And there could be a deeper connection here. And I have known for quite a long time that when I'm not able to have that connection with another being, with another human, it's not that their love is not sufficient, really. It is a reflection of my ability to be open to the love that they are. And so, what is keeping me from seeing that? There are myriad ways. So, that's something we can go into. And then the other experience is basically what I've been having this last week. And I've experienced it before. It's that feeling when, or not really feeling, it's a state where all feelings drop away. And so I have been in a state this last week, and it's quite challenging actually, of feeling no emotions, almost no emotions. There have been some blips on the radar, but not much. And it feels like a state that is void of life. It feels like a state that is void of wanting to experience anything or wanting to move forward at all. And it's quite a desolate place to be. And so I recognize this for what it is, that it's kind of the void that happens when desires that weren't really true desires are falling away. And so ego desires aren't really needed in that way in my life anymore. And so what will I have to replace it? There I have a choice point. Will I keep chasing experiences in this human life, in this very physical existence? Or will I take the leap to go even deeper? Right. And you know me, what my desire is, and it is always to go deeper, to find the highest truth. And so what is blocking me to go there? And this is something that we've been talking about a bit in private, and this theme about what is love, what is God, is something that I feel we can talk about for a very long time. And it's very helpful to me. It is very helpful to me because a lot of the time things come up for me when I contemplate what is love that are still at some level keeping me from feeling this infinite experience of love that I once got to experience. And every interaction that illuminates those things is helpful for my heart to melt a little bit more, for me to open a little bit more to what real love is.
Wow.
So with that, if you would want to share some of your thoughts, there you could begin from anywhere about what is love and what is love not.
Thank you, Sandra, for sharing such personal aspects from your life and being vulnerable as well. Let's go with the first topic that you mentioned, which you felt a relief from the conditionings that block that energy of love. And then you mentioned that the second part of the first sharing was that when we go back to day by day life, it becomes challenging how to keep that flow. Yeah, it's so deep, because what is a psychological treatment? Basically, it's to help us come back to who we really are. And what is a spiritual process? It's the same. But the difference is that in psychology, the foundation of all will be to come back to my healthy material identity, which means my healthy ego, which means the untraumatized me. And the spiritual psychology will be actually to surpass that identity and to come back to your real identity. Now, how is it connected to what you said? Because love comes from the real identity. Love comes from the spirit. So love is from a domain which is not physical, which means that there are spiritual progresses to help love illuminate. And that's a big thing in this society, which is a big step, because people, as you said, usually interpret love as conditionings, as mixing love with sex, for example, and different things. But the pure aspect of love is completely divine. So for a person to really want to connect that divine place in him, that requires a divine process. I think that's very important to understand, that a spiritual practice to bring us back to our original identity is required in order for us to experience our real I, which means love. Now, from here, we can understand that there's aspects that block that love, and that's called conditioning. And these conditionings, which block our love, they're sitting on the material identity. Now, what's the relationship between the real identity and the, you can say, false identity or the material identity? The false identity or the ego is, by definition, self-centered. And the real identity is love, which means to serve others, to give. I'm diving into it, but it's a very deep topic, because once we understand these two things, we can start to really like clean the things which are not us. For example, let's say a mother takes care of her child. A motherly's love is the strongest love basically in this earth. And let's say as the child is like screaming maybe for milk or whatever, and the mother comes, and then one of her friends comes to the mother and tells her, "Hey, Daniela, you are such an amazing mother." Now, she can take, in that circumstance when the baby is there, a normal person or a healthy person will not really care about what her friend said, because the love to her infant is overflowing the desire to get praised. Makes sense? For example, her attention is not going to stop from the child and come back to, "Oh, wow, thank you so much. Yeah, I think I'm a good mother." And then that love will be cut with her child. So when love is very present, this example is demonstrating that self-adoration is less present. So the more we connect true love, the less we focus on about me and me and me. We just focus about the object of love, because love itself is the price. Not praise, not price like amount. It's like the trophy, is the treasure. Love itself is the reward. That's a better word to say. Love itself is the substance that we're looking for. And when that love is absent, then that same energy, because there's only one thing in this world, which is love. There is nothing else. Filters, no filters. It's all one energy of love, in being filtered in so many different ways, but it's only one thing, which is love. So when that love is not present deeply, so it gets filtered. Now, filtered means that pure love to someone becomes self-centered. It's about me. And when that love is all about me, that is okay to some degree, but it's not anymore. That person cannot experience anymore the pure love, which is that selfless feeling of love, because he or she are taking it to me.
It becomes very limited, right?
I mean, based on this, on the sutras of yoga, there are different gunas, which mean different modes of nature: Rajagun, Tamagun, and Sattvagun, which means passion, ignorance, and goodness. So, I mean, this is for a totally different episode. what are these gunas and how they're playing the role of our psychology and our material identity. But basically, a person can be in a dark state, in a passionate state, or in a good state. A good state, goodness, sattva, is very similar to the pure effect of love, but still it's tinged with what about I. It's like I'm loving because I feel good from it. It's like it's about me. It defines, by being a good person, we build our value based on the body, like I am good. Just like this mother, her friend came and praised her friend, like, oh, you're such a beautiful mother. So a person in goodness will want to feel that I'm a good person, I'm doing the right things, I'm in harmony with my positivity. But love is even deeper. It's like letting go of all these titles. It's just love. So, okay, that snatched me out a little bit, but my point, I think I was trying to direct it to, yeah, we were talking about self-centeredness. So when love, or when we think that our happiness comes from me being in the center, that love becomes filtered. And when a person starts to realize that actually my opening of conditioning will happen when I start to learn how to love, that's the breakout from prison, which means our filters, our traumas, everything. Because what is a trauma? I also had a bad childhood, went through a lot of traumas, so I know really good what is traumas. And I was going to psychologists and different healers throughout my monk's life because sometimes it was too much. So I have a good perspective about the spiritual and the healing processes of emotional and whatever we all do. But trauma is always about me. What happened to me? Now, it's not justified. It's not that it's wrong. That's not the, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying, what I'm trying to say is, there is a stronger force. There is a stronger force beyond what happened to me, that if I can learn how to practice to connect, because it's not like a switch, that stronger force will take me beyond the traumatic I to the pure I. And that is called spiritual transformation. That is where we start to shift back to our real identity. And how do we know? Because we start to live with so much happiness, of love, of giving. And also we start to be really sensitive to these inside subtle clinches that want to take it to me. So it's like somebody who plays a violin or cello, he or she are really sensitive to any fake note. It's like, oh, this is not the tune, and always try to tunes back to that. So yeah. So I think the whole journey of life, based on the Vedas, and also based on logic, emotional logic, is to really learn to not take love to myself, but actually to learn how to give love. And by giving love, that connection fills us. And that's actually the irony. We think that the more I get, the more I will be full. But the problem is, because our real identity, the soul, is a lover, is love, and the nature is to serve others. So the other identity, the ego, doesn't matter how much he nourishes himself in the gunas, even in the mode of goodness, he or she still will fall down to an empty space because it doesn't sit on the pure energy of service. For example, let's say there's a wife who got married to a beautiful husband, and they're on their honeymoon, or let's say after the honeymoon, and now the husband, it's just like their first month together, so it's like she's totally excited and she's so happy and everything. And then he has a business meeting with his boss, a huge boss, flew into his state and he wants to meet him. So he tells his wife, look, please iron my clothes for tomorrow morning, and I need this, please cook for me because I'm going to be hungry and everything. And let's say the next morning he comes and nothing is there. There's no iron clothes and there's no food. And he's a bit upset because he needs it for his meeting. And when he comes to his wife in a loving, gentle way, like, sweetie, where is the... And then she says, well, I'm so sorry. I mean, I was just thinking about you the whole day, dreaming about just seeing you, that I forgot to cook and iron your clothes. So that seems very beautiful. It seems, wow, she's so in love. But that's self-centeredness. That's not love. She's enjoying love. She's enjoying the feeling of being in love. But that's not love. Love means, oh, I love that. What can I do for him? How can I make him happy? That is love. So love equals service. And when that service is not there, then it's a trip about how I feel. I want to feel good. I want to feel happy. But I don't want to serve. I don't want to love. So yeah, that's a big topic, right? It's like, yeah, you want to say something, I can see.
Yeah, I recognize in that the importance of really being honest with ourselves. What are the reasons that I do not want to serve? What are the reasons that I want to take and not give? And, you know, there is always an unresolved trauma or something in our baggage that keeps us feeling as if there is lack of love. So we were talking about this a little bit before when we were talking privately about what happens in the moment, usually when we were children and we were not able to process emotional experiences that were too intense for us to feel in that moment, and we weren't helped to feel those intense emotions. So we felt that someone wasn't loving us. It may or may not have been true, but that's how we experienced it.
Most probably it's true, because if we experience it, it means it's true.
Well, there are instances where we interpret, I mean, yes, it wasn't probably unconditional love, but it was probably a loving act from someone. But we couldn't experience that because we felt that our needs weren't met in that point. So what happens then, this is my understanding at least, and this is what I see a lot in my work and in my own work on myself, that a part of consciousness kind of splinters off, kind of fractures out, because it's too painful to have that be at the surface of our awareness. So that goes off into the subconscious, and that piece of consciousness that was splintered off keeps being focused on that because it's not resolved. And so that will always be there. It will even show in our actions and in our ways of interacting with and experiencing the world. It will be very prominent, but we will not see it. We will not be aware that it's there because it's in our subconscious. And so what we've been talking about before, the ways of healing that so that we can come back to that magic of service, that service really is something absolutely beautiful and something that really fulfills us. But that is very hard to see when we're stuck with that piece of consciousness onto that trauma. And so what I've experienced, and we might compare this to your experience, is that there are three ways of healing that, basically. So the way that has been prominent for me has been shadow work, which is that we fully allow ourselves to go into that pain so that we can accept and resolve that pain, accept that as a part of us, and choose to transmute it, choose to do something different with this core belief that this consciousness is revolving around. And so shadow work is messy. It requires us to be really honest with ourselves and the ways that we're actually quite egotistical. And it's not that it's a bad thing. It comes from us being empty. It comes from us being unloved, but it causes us to display a behavior of being egotistical because we need that love that we never got. So shadow work is
which is natural, which is natural, because we deserve love. We're not just here for nothing. Like, we are. Love means both sides. It's like tango. It's that giving and receiving. It's natural.
Yes, when we're infants, we're totally dependent on that love. That is what we crave. That is what we need, right? We talked about in the end of last episode that we need to actually learn love. And as babies, as children, we're supposed to be learning that love from our caregivers. And so if they are able to give us unconditional love, then we'll be set. But usually that isn't the case, right? So this is something that almost all of us have, probably all of us. And then the second way, so that is kind of, the shadow work is kind of taking the charge away from that painful memory so that we can allow consciousness to move away from it. And the second way is to simply move away our consciousness, to become aware, okay, this is a core belief. I do not want to engage my energy in it anymore because it's not serving me. And sometimes this is actually possible. Sometimes we can take that bit of consciousness and integrate it with ourselves, and that is all. But usually, very often, it's not possible because the emotional charge is so strong. So if we can just move consciousness into an integrated feeling of our being, then that's good. And if not, that's shadow work. And the third way of healing would be Bhakti, would be service, would be to choose to serve with love. And that is, you call it both the hardest path and the easiest path, and the most direct path, definitely. And I feel that it's the hardest path, and I invite you to dive deeper into that, because the traumas that we have that are blocking us to take that path are in direct opposition to it. So, for example, in my life, there has been the issue of the masculine authority. Like, it's very hard for me to, or it has been very hard for me to surrender to a masculine authority because that has wounded me in the past. So I need to take care of those wounds before I'm even able to surrender, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what do you think about that?
Well, I have in my mind to drop a bomb.
All right.
But I'm not sure for the audience because it's gonna be like an atom bomb, like, so.
Go with it. Go with it.
Go with it. Okay. Okay, with your permission.
Mm-hmm.
So, in order to resolve all these really complex, subtle situations, we actually have to understand the whole picture of this world. We have to understand, why do we have these bodies from the beginning? Why do we have ego from the beginning? Why is this world created from the beginning? And does God exist? And if he does, who is he, or how is he relevant to my life? Because once we can put all the dots together, we can solve our really tiny problems, which is, because we can solve our problems. So the bomb I want to maybe put in is actually to take this, it's like micro and macro. We're talking about micro here, how to solve individually our issues, but I believe, and the Bhakti literature will share the same, that by the wisdom of macro, the micro becomes easy to solve. Because if you're lost in in a place and you have no idea about where the exit is, you can run here and you can run there, but you may be lost for a long time. But if you know where the exit is, you can just make your path out. So all our conditionings, they have a reason why they are there. And it's not just because of this life. We heard about karma before. And karma also has a reason why it's there, reincarnation. So I think the bomb I want to drop is actually to go to that source of everything, to understand how the whole snowball starts, this whole avalanche of material existence. And then from there, it's going to be much more easy to understand the shift to something else. So is that okay?
Oh, yes.
Okay. If we examine this world, are we the center of it? We just came and we're going. And the world has existed before our manifestation of this body and will exist much, much after. So when we come and we think I'm the center of it all, that's a little bit crazy if you really think about it logically. Now, this is a hint for all our issues, because we may want to solve issues in different ways, and they may be progressive ways, from, as in yoga, in the different gunas, from different modes of nature, from different darknesses to a more bright light and to a bright light. But if we actually don't understand the root of all our entanglement, it's like up and down in a closed circle, because the root is still there. And the Vedas, they share something out of our picture, which is the key to our freedom. And that is that we are not the center. The center is God. Now, this is a big thing because, okay, God, where is God? Who is God? I don't see God. I don't want to see God. And the reason we don't want to connect the source, based on the Vedas, I'm not saying my own speculations, is because we have a separate desire from the source. And because we have a separate desire from the Creator, from God, we don't want to deal with Him.
Yeah.
And because we don't want to deal with Him, the most easiest thing is to close our eyes to Him, which means to disconnect, just like a trauma. Just like in traumas, I mean, this is not, emotionally like perfect in comparison to God, but we disconnect pain because we don't want to deal with it. God is not pain. God is pure good. But emotionally, we don't want to relate to God. We don't want to feel, we don't, because what happens if we acknowledge Him? It means our heart naturally has to flow to Him. That's how the heart works. That's how the heart works. So because we have a separate desire from the Creator, we choose subconsciously, but still consciously to some degree, to close that channel to Him, not to deal with Him. Because of this, or we can say this turning of our head from Him, away from Him, is the root source of all our complications and sufferings in this world, including all the conditionings and all the trauma. Which basically, the opposite way to put it, the moment we do desire to acknowledge His presence and come closer and start to open our heart, that is the healing process from all our material experiences, and it's going to wash everything away. Even in our life, if we don't like someone, we will see him or her in an impersonal way, subconsciously. We won't treat him or her as a person. We will see he or her as something, because then it doesn't threat our existence. We will put concepts on that person, definitions, just not to deal with them as a person, because that will trigger my emotions. And I think we all do it. And the process of love is to actually see people for who they are, not for what they are. Same with God. Now, God is a what? But actually, it's a he. It's a personality. When we see God as something, which means as energy, only energy. I'm sharing here based on the Vedas, what the Vedas say. Again, it's nothing with my ideas. Is that when we see God as something, it's because we don't want to see him as someone. And it's not so innocent. Because if he is someone, what does it mean? It means that he's the center. I'm not the center anymore. And if he's the center, what does it mean for me? It means a lot. It's a life-changing thing. So to take him out of the center, we also take him out of form, because of a non-dual form has no I, is not in the center. It's just energy. And with energy, you can play. But with an I, you can't play, because the I is there, standing in front of you.
I would mention something that I thought was very beautiful when you and Gunavatar introduced me to Bhakti roughly 2+ years ago. Basically, when we have a drive to experience liberation, like moksha, it can be very interesting to look at why are we pursuing that, because liberation could be seen as like a spiritual suicide, like you call it, and that could come from a very, very deep-rooted place of fear. So basically what we're experiencing and what is driving us to moksha is this wanting to escape from the suffering of this reality. And if you have never tasted what actual real love is, then you don't know why this reality is such a blessing and such a gift to be able to serve God. And so you want to escape this reality so that you can be close to God, but that isn't really the deepest essence of love. The deepest essence of love is when it doesn't matter to you what form, what planet you're born on. It doesn't matter if you're ethereal or in a body, because you are so in contact with that source of love through your service that you don't wish for anything else. Like the human suffering, there may be pain or there may be no pain, and it doesn't really matter to you, because you feel such fulfillment in that ecstasy, in that love of the communion, of the service to God.
Yeah, you said it so beautifully. Yeah.
And so when you reach that inner sense of service, of love, you don't really feel called to moksha anymore. You just want to be in service, whatever form it takes.
Wow, Sandra, you just became enlightened.
Well, this is really one of the things that Gunavatar really gifted me with in one of our seminars.
Because in moksha, there's no love. No love.
Yeah.
It's only about no more suffering, but that's boring.
Yeah, exactly. It's no more movement. It's just the
Yeah.
stillness. And yeah, as you said once before as well, if we've had a lot of suffering, then yes, it makes sense to go for that goal of having peace. But
Yeah.
just planting that seed of knowing that there is something beyond that peace.
Yeah.
And the reason there is something beyond that peace is that there is a personality beyond the non-duality, you know.
Wow. Yeah, you said it. I slowly was leading there, but you
Yeah,
said it.
yeah.
And
And
that is the key for everything, because okay, so I was just about to say, before you shared your beautiful realization that I'm really grateful for, is that this reality, this universe, is created just for us, for souls who want to rebel God's authority. Not in a like punishment way, but based on like those souls who don't want to be with him, don't want to love him. So God creates this world for souls who are very stubborn and they don't want to be in the spiritual world with him, experience pure divine love. They want to feel that it's like they want to feel, because what happens in a spiritual, well, I feel I'm quite jumping for the audience here, but because I remember in my Facebook group that you were a part of, I was talking really like easy, and so many people were liking. And then when and then when I started to put these things, then everybody started to drop out.
that's fine. We'll take the risk.
Yeah, sure. Because that's where like, yeah, that's where it becomes more and more like to the point, you know.
Mm.
So for those souls who actually chosen, not God chose, and they didn't choose because of cruelty or not even jealousy. Jealousy comes after. More like curiosity. Like like I wonder how will it feel if I can be like him. Something like this. And even though God came to us and told us, just come, let's just be together, we were like, I want to experience something else. I think that there is a higher happiness than just being with you.
Mm.
So God, as the most embodiment personality, as you said, of love, doesn't force. God, God's present for each soul is free choice. Why? Because he's only love. God never punishes. When people in our modern world rebel God, it's because we see him like a really bad person, like he's a dictator, like a psychopath or something, you know. He just wants to like, he just hates us, or he's angry at us, or
He's not taking care of us, but it's our projection from our own filters, right?
totally. God has nothing. God is only the most softest love.
Mm.
There's no love that can come close to God. It's like it's who we are. That's our love. So all the bad things that we feel, it's nothing with God. It's our own whatever experiences. Um, so God created this world for souls who didn't want to be with him. So therefore, us, and it's not a bad activity. It's not like he's angry, or like the Bible God, he was angry and he's jealous. No, this is completely nonsense. God is not angry, he's not envy. He's fully always blissful and love and compassionate and sensitive. Nothing with all these negative qualities.
Mm.
So God created this world for us that we can, because we wanted, like, I want to experience. So he's okay. you can, he says, in this consciousness, this desire, even though I want, you cannot fit in the spiritual world because it's just a different energy. So let me create just for you this world that you can go with your story. You can try your best to fulfill that desire and see how it works for you.
Yeah, see how it works for you. Do you feel filled up or do you feel empty, right?
Exactly. And from here, from this mentality, all our suffering starts. So if we want to actually liberation from suffering, we have to go to the root, which is this. And all other works are nice on different layers, but without touching this root, it's going to be still in that material I-ness.
Well, not even material. Can I inject something here?
Sure.
So something that I'm seeing, maybe in myself, but I'm also seeing it in others who have attained a greater awareness of themselves, shall we say, as being souls, as containing the universe because they're a fractal part of the universe. They are an image of God, and they have realized that. And something that can happen when we reach that stage, shall we say, is that we tend to stay on that stage and decide that this is what it is. This is everything that is. I am the universe. And that is where our spiritual I gets hijacked into an ego kind of experience of the universe. We say, oh, well, because I am a creator, which we are because we are a child of God. Creator. Yes, we're tiny creators, but we experience it in our world as if we are the creators of our world. And then it is easy to lose sight of us not actually being all there is. It is easy to kind of create a bubble around ourselves that this is the universe that I am creating. So we become this miniature God. Like that is the danger of
exactly.
And maybe not danger, maybe you could call it a natural stage on the path, but eventually you will find that maybe this wasn't the most fulfilling idea because it's still not connected in that love string, in that service to God. And so however much time we need to spend on that stage of being the universe, eventually we'll figure out that there must be something more fulfilling than this.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Some people, and hopefully, because here the word karma enters and reincarnation. But I'll just finish the whole story. So what happens basically, just so the audience can understand, that this universe is created with so many planets and we are here, and the soul comes in. Now the soul is completely aware of that being, completely, because the soul is a soul. But the soul wants to forget that awareness. It desires to forget. So God helps that soul, which is every one of us, to fully forget about his existence and the whole relationship to the spiritual world. Now, how does God do it? So God is the most powerful, mystical being. His energy is called Achintya Shakti, which means inconceivable energy. So what he does, there is something called the Mahatattva, but it's just technical stuff, different energies. But inside these different energies, he creates an energy called Ahankara, which means in the Western world, false ego. Now, what that is a real energy, but it's the most subtle form of matter. Matter has 8 energies: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. These are the gross elements of matter. And then matter goes into subtle dimensions of 3 different categories: mind, intelligence, and false ego. These are also real substances of matter, but in a subtle dimension. And behind it all behind these 8 elements is the real reality, which is the soul and God and the spiritual reality and everything. Liberation, happiness, everything. Now, God, again, because we had a desire to forget him, which means to experience how is it to be him, he puts that energy of ahankara and he glues the soul to that energy. Now, what happens, because God is stronger than the soul, God's energies are stronger than us because God is God. So that energy is stronger than us by God's desire, which is our desire. What happens, the soul, which is infinite awareness of God and connection, when that energy touches the soul and wraps around him, immediately the soul forgets about everything. It's like a knockout. It's like a coma, or I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Like completely forgets about him being a soul. And further than that, God is actually there, and I belong to that spiritual dimension. And that ego glues the soul to the physical body. And we wake up in a womb of a mother, we come to this world, and then what happens? We think, oh, this is me. And this is the welcome to the material existence. And this was going on since basically time immemorial. We, in one point of time, which is undescribable, because we don't know how billions of trillions of years was our choice to come here. But since then, we are here in unlimited different bodies. Each reincarnation, each life is a different body based on your karma. Just that you can go on with that desire. Okay, this life I wasn't rich. Only if I had money, then I can be who I wanted to be. Okay, next life, if you have the qualification, you did the good karma. Okay, next life you become a multi-billionaire. You become Jeff Bezos, the #1 rich. And then, yeah, well, I have everything, but still something is missing. If only this, and if only goes on for eternity. Because again, what we are looking for is not here. That desire to be God, to be #1, to experience that feeling is illusion. It's not, it has no substance. So yeah, just to wrap it short. So God also creates karma, which, because the soul, once it disconnects God, it's independent now. It's not under God's desire. Like some people, they ask me, if God is all good, how do we see so much evil in this world? And then I reply, it's not God, it's the human beings evil. Human beings act evilly, but it's nothing with God. It's their free choice. So that's the power of free choice and freedom. And that's what God gives, because that's called love. God doesn't force nobody to love him, because love it's not pleasurable to be forced to love. If I want you, Sandra, to love me and I force you, how can I enjoy it? It has to come from you. That's love. Wait, just one thing. I know you want to say something, but so God gives every soul independence to do and act as he or she wishes. But each soul is fully responsible for his or her actions, good or bad. And here karma kicks in, that since billions of lifetimes we are doing things, some of them are good, some of them are bad, and we get mixed with different reactions, which creates different circumstances, which creates so many emotional issues. and problems. And that's where we're now. We're now mixed with so much baggage of filters, which is, just speaking philosophically, it's just our karma. And that is caused by our desire to disconnect him. So the moment the soul sincerely, and this is the point, wants to connect God based on wisdom, based on understanding, like what is reality, that moment a door immediately opens in his heart to start to experience the real reality beyond this old karmic, false, illusionary self. And that's the door out. So yeah, I think from my side, I'm gonna stop here, and next episode, so much more to say about, but I just put the whole process of why are we entangled and what's the way out, and I put God as the key, and I hope it's quite clear for everyone.
I will not be able to sleep tonight unless we go to one detail of what you shared here.
Okay, please. Yeah, sure.
So I'm thinking about the concept of free will and where exactly it originates. So I understand that I cannot fully understand this because I do not have the direct experience. But starting from where I am and trying to understand from here. So basically our soul originates from God. And so what is free will really? It is a part of God. It is God's free will to break out, or is it because the soul is God? The soul is never really truly separate from God, right?
Okay, if you bring it out, I'm gonna answer it. Actually, the soul is separated from God.
From the very beginning?
Yes,
okay.
Eternally.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the difference between Bhakti and non-dual philosophies.
Mm.
Advaita and different, is that God and us are different.
Mm.
And this is the topic I wanted to speak next time, because this is very, very deep, and as well very threatening to our ego's existence. And probably 90% of the audience will be, will be triggered, but those who really want to really understand reality will be honest enough to really see things as they are and experience things as they are, and those feel much better. But yeah, so the Vedas, they teach that God has three aspects. All of them are perfect, and yet there are deeper, it's just like a friend knows you, but he knows you as a friend.
Mm.
And then you have a lover who knows you much more deeper, experiences you much more deeper, that a friend cannot experience the aspect of that from with your relationship. And then let's say you're a mother and your son experiences you different from your lover, and so on. So based on the Vedas, God has three different aspects. The first aspect, which is the most common, is the Brahman, which means he is the oneness. He is, everything is energy, everything is Brahman, which is pure spirit. He's God. And those who get stuck there, they think this is God. And guess what? It's true. They're not wrong. This is God. But if you want to go deeper, which means there are scriptures that tell you, hey, I have a secret. Come, let me show you. And they take you to the back door and they say, actually, the Brahman is only God's energy. Do you want to actually see him? So then the second aspect is Paramatma. Atma means the soul, and Param means supreme. So Paramatma means the supreme soul. So in the Upanishads, it is said that in our heart, there are two souls, us, the Jiva, and the Paramatma. And the Paramatma, which is God, has a form. It's is a person, and he's inside your heart, and he's witnessing every single thing you're doing. And he's just waiting for the time that you will turn back to him. And he's so patient. He has trillions of unlimited billions of lifetimes just to stay there with you, accompany you birth after birth, body after body, until that poor soul starts to speak to him again. And once that poor soul gets out of its crazy illusion, then God, Paramatma in the heart, starts to pull you back, gives you the intelligence, gives you the wisdom. Now, so in Patanjali, I guess everybody knows, most people heard about Patanjali or the Yoga Sutras. The highest stage is called Samadhi, which is the 8th stage of Ashtanga Yoga. And that inclines the yogi is in Samadhi, which means trance. Trance about what? He is seeing the Lord in his heart. By seeing that most beautiful form, he's in ecstasy. And that ecstasy is not a physical ecstasy. It takes place by spiritual senses, because the physical body cannot hold such ecstasy. It will just die. It's much beyond this physical. So the Ashtanga yogi, by awakening all his spiritual body, he can perceive the Paramatma and just look at him for eternity, because it's just yeah, I don't know, because I never saw, but it is the most beautiful form. He can speak to the Paramatma can speak. He realizes that this is, I don't know, something like that anyway. And then you may say, okay, this is it. This is the highest. And here in this point is where the Bhakti scriptures open up. Until here, it's not Bhakti. It's all other Vedic wisdoms, which are beautiful. But here is the uniqueness of Bhakti, that no other scripture in the Vedas or anywhere in the world has that back door to God. And that is that beyond the Paramatma aspect, actually, God is Bhagavan, which means he's actually a person. And the Paramatma is an expansion from him, from his personality. And the Brahman, the unlimited vice energy, it's his aura, it's his energy. So the source of Brahman is an individual personality, and not the opposite, that personality comes from Brahman. And this is where a lot of yoga texts put it wrong. And we will dive into this next episodes, because it's a lot with psychology and separate desires, why we put things wrong. Everything has an agenda behind why we think the way we think and feel the way we feel. So the Bhakti scriptures and all the sages who achieved enlightenment, of Bhakti, they all confirm the same Vedanta, the same conclusions, that yes, the highest aspect of God is a supreme personality. Wow. Who is that person? That's where Bhakti begins. And the more we can come close to that person, we have an eternal relationship with that person that we forgot. We wanted to forget. And therefore this whole world is existing. Therefore, we have these physical bodies. Therefore, we suffer. Some don't suffer, but it's not full happiness as well.
Mm.
And the key, again, is that person. So when we don't know about Bhagavan, when we don't know about that person, what's remaining is two things, or to moksha, which means to merge into Brahman, which means I just become one with God. I merge into his energy. And that's the Buddhist nirvana, different Brahma Jyoti, perfection in the Mayavad schools and different stuff in the Brahmanandas and different Vedic schools, that I clean myself from matter and those merge back into the Brahman, become one with God. And that is happening. That can happen if you want to. That's true. But even there, you never merge. It's like you never become that. You just, it's like you go to the ocean and you lay down on a or lake is better because there's no waves. You just lay down with a water boat or something, and you just peace. You're just there. So that's like the experience. You like your energy just merges. You don't lose your individuality, but like you just become like one with the experience of Brahman. It's like you don't feel anymore I. You just become like Shanti. It's like, it's so Shanti that you forget about I. That's the point. So that's available. And then you have the yogis who want to achieve samadhi, who want to actually achieve connecting that personality of Brahman. But then you have the bhaktas who actually are not satisfied just by merging, because that's boring. Like, what do you do there? Just stay there forever? And you're not just satisfied by even seeing God, but you want to have a relationship with that person. You want, just like I'm talking with you, Sandra, and I feel so happy every time I see you and I talk to you. It's real. My heart really feels happy. So I want to be with you. It's natural. So bhaktas, so now why is it natural between me and you? Because we have nice affection to each other. Our heart is open because we are personalities. So bhaktas are these souls, these devotees who are realizing that supreme person, God, and his unlimited attractive qualities. And these qualities attract them so much, just like we get attracted by human beings' qualities, that they want to be with him in friendship. And then the Vedas describe that there's 5 different rasas or kinds of relationship a soul can have with God. Fast going on it, it's first is Shanta, which means that's the Patanjali yoga's perfection, like astonishment. It's like, I just realized God. I just, and you just get astonished, ecstasy. But there's no relationship. It's more just like awe and reverence. It's like, you know, it's like the fans, the fans see the Beatles and oh my God, but there's no like relationship. It's just like, but that's also spiritual. Then it's dasya, which means to do service. It's like, but intimate service. Like, for example, you have a king, and let's say a king has his position, and then he has servants, but he doesn't treat the servants like, like we treat them, like with, oh, they're just servants and they're low class, and I just pay them money and give them a room, and that's it. I don't have nothing with them. No. Let's say you have a beautiful king who appreciates service, who reciprocates with your service, who you feel so happy to serve, that you just wait to serve that person. You can't even go to sleep. You just want to serve him because his reciprocation is so sweet that you just want to serve, That's love. That's the second stage. Now, each stage becomes more and more intimate. The third stage is called Sakya, which means now actually I want to be his intimate friend, because service still has awe and reverence, but friendship has none. Friendship, I can slap you, I can hug you, we can jump, we can we can roll in the mud, we can do everything, and so that's the third relationship, that me and that God, we become intimate friends, just like we have here. But we're talking the most. God is also called Surat, which means the most intimate friend. That's the third, Sakya. Fourth is very interesting concept that we will dive into it. So much things to dive into it. Is called Vatsalya, which means to be God's parent, father and mother. Because, wow, so much to open, but because you see, we have relationships. We have a father and a mother and a lover and a son and a co-worker and this and that. And every relationship gives some pleasure if the channel is flowing nicely. So since God, that person, is the origin of everything, he is the source of relationships. So he wants to experience all sources of relationships. So he also has a father and a mother, not because they brought him to the world, but as a means of experience, relationship. So some souls, they feel like, I just want to take care of him. Because when you have a beautiful small boy, like 3-4 years, and he smiles so cute, and you just want to hug him and kiss him and just sleep with him at night, and just hear his breath coming on your neck or something, whatever. So that's very deep, it's very intimate. So God wants to experience that as well. So he has parents and friends and servants and everything. But higher than that, and that's the highest, is called Maduyaras, or anyway, which means, what does it mean? What do you think is coming now?
Lover.
Yeah, exactly. Which is lovers. Because the most intimate thing is between lovers. And so those souls who want to actually be with him as lovers, you can have that if you want. That's available for you. So based on the Bhakti scriptures, there are 5 different rasas that you can enter, anyone that you choose that is most sweetest to your heart. And God will reciprocate and accept any taste that you want to be with him. Now, every soul has something called svarup, which means every soul has already an inclination towards God, which is eternally that. So the whole process of bhakti is to clean all the false filters which represent our egocentric choice, physical body, and come back to our original inclination of taste, of relationship with that supreme person. And that's the beginning of pure love. Wow.
That's beautiful. That is so beautiful. Thank you.
Just one thing. This is not a metaphor. This people should listen to this as it is, no interpretation. This is not a metaphor. This is real. He is real. He is a person. And if you want, you can relate to him. And the more, that's Bhakti Yoga. It's those souls who want to discover and come close to that. They don't want to see him as formless anymore. They don't want to disconnect. They don't want to choose to be him. They want simply to start to love him. Why? because he's the most adorable personality. If somebody loves you, you are happy with that. So we have a concept that God is like, if I surrender to God, what about me? That's the fear. What I'm gonna lose my enjoyment. I'm gonna be his slave or whatever.
Or I will lose my identity. I will lose who I am, you know.
Exactly. And completely the opposite. Now we are lost completely in a material identity and in a conception which is so far from that feeling of unlimited love that we are so crying for. And everything in this world is a really small replacement for that. Every soul is actually looking for that relationship, but we're trying to find it here, but it's not existing here because nobody is him. So, and that person, for example, I think like, no, I don't know, but like for ladies, it's much more easier to practice bhakti because first they're more emotional, but the second thing is they want a lover. So why not have the supreme lover? Because for male, he has to like clean his male identity, which is not him anyway, and come back to his female's heart, which is the soul. But anyway, because for if you have the most beautiful person, the most loving the most everything person, so naturally you get attracted to him. The only reason, again I repeat, and we can close here, the only reason we're not attracted to him is because we want to take his place. And the moment and that blocks our heart, because our heart, love means the flow to him. So yeah, so that's the whole healing process from matter to spirit, and the whole evolution of consciousness from I'm just here with my own micro problems and how do I help myself, to the macro picture that this is actually this is the whole cycle. And this also answers the second section of your first sharing of the episode, why sometimes we feel so numbed and no emotions, and like what do we do, is because now a spiritual door opens to a deeper dimension. We can enter there and experience a real taste beyond matter. Wow, this episode went to a totally different dimension. I didn't want to talk about these deep things because I'm trying to bring the audience like really slow, but maybe it's just like I said, this bomb maybe had to just fall and just
I think this was a beautiful, amazing sharing. And even though it might be big to take in all at once, I think it's a beautiful seed to think about, to bring with us in our heart and contemplate, because we always have a choice. That is our free will. We can decide that for us, God is impersonal, or we can choose to look at the possibility of God as personal and which one feels more satisfying to me. And based on that, which one do I think will be more fulfilling? Which one should I choose now to explore? It doesn't mean that you have to explore it forever, but you can start. And of course, when we start on any spiritual path, we need some time to get into the practice and time to break down our shells, right? But sooner or later, we might actually have an experience, or we will have an experience where we get that first taste so that we know this is the right path for me. This is something that is completely fulfilling me.
I just want to say something really like fast, that I do want to nail it here again, because we already put the bomb, so no more bombs anymore. Everything's already exploded, so nothing to destroy more. But we can choose to see God as a person or not. And in the same time, the reality is that he is a person. It's not that we make him a person and then, okay, now I make him a person and I practice to love him as a person. And now maybe I prefer not, maybe for me it's more easy to be in Shanti with no person, just energy. No, that's not the right perception. The right perception is based on the Vedas, based on the scriptures. No, he is a person. And now I have the choice to accept it and want to surrender and learn the jewels of love to that person, or I want to take distance from that person and stay in more different zones. That's the choice we have. Reality is reality, but we can choose where we want to connect, but we cannot twist reality. That's the point.
I think we need to be a bit humble towards the fact that people come from different traditions who are watching this, and for people who do not come from the Hindu traditions or know anything about the Vedas, there might be a few of those watching, and it might be difficult to take it at face value. And so for people who has no trust in that kind of authority, well, start where you are. So what feels can take you forward. If your highest goal is the highest truth, well, then state that and see where it takes you, and be open to where it takes you.
Exactly. Allow your heart to flow.
Yeah.
And when your heart flows, it will find the truth. What blocks that heart is just separate desires, as we said, and fears from this world. Otherwise, the soul is the soul. I am I can't change I. And the soul has a nature. So once we allow that nature to flow, it will find its destination 100%. We just have to allow it to flow to that. A river flows naturally to the ocean.
Thank you so much, Nir, for sharing all of your wisdom and your heart with us today. It's been beautiful. We've been going wide and deep, and I'm looking forward to continue doing that next time, next Friday in Conversations with Nir. Thank you so much.
Have a beautiful day, Sandra.
Thank you. And thank you to the audience who was watching, and I'm looking forward to having you with us next time as well. And be sure to drop a comment if you have any questions, if something was triggered for you, or you're interested in hearing about something particular. We can do our best to dive into that. And if you enjoy this, please put a like or put a comment below, and be with us next time. Thank you.